adopted.
That's what that HTTPS is across the top there under Zoom. No, that's the Zoom meeting.
No, it's up in the corner. It says live on YouTube.
Okay.
And then
Now
it's a
streaming.
totally other screen that you probably won't see, but it's just in case someone wants to dial in and watch.
Okay.
And then if you go to executive session, I'll stop it.
Can you see
Okay,
the
good. So I think we have everybody here who's coming that we know about. This is a little after 4. I will now call the meeting to order of the Saratoga County Prosperity Partnership. And if we scroll down, do we get to the minutes, or is that just on our packet that was sent?
It should be on the packet that was sent to everyone.
Okay.
A packet with everything from beginning to end.
So did everyone get a chance to look at the packet and to look at the minutes? I'm just going to ask for someone to make a motion.
This is Darren. I make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Thank you, Darren.
I'll second it, Supervisor Conley.
Thank you, Eric. The minutes have been adopted. Any comments or abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Minutes have been adopted. I'm going to turn this section over to Rocky Ferraro to talk about the treasurer's report. Rocky, you all set to talk about that?
Sure am. Thank you, Penny. I don't know, Shelby, if you could put that up on the screen. If not, I'll just reiterate some of the numbers.
Okay, hold on one second.
Scroll down. Just the statement of activity comparison and budget report.
Give me 1 second. That. All right. There you go. Sorry about that.
Okay, here.
Oh, sorry.
And just the first one, that has the comparison of budget, it has the budget information and the expenditures and revenue to date.
Mhm.
I don't know if you could, if not, I could just talk about it.
I'm just trying to pull up the entire full packet. Sorry
Okay.
about that. There are.
It was the first set of numbers.
Mhm. Hold on 1 second.
So just scroll up. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm not sure if she has it, the way she has it set up.
Yeah, I've got individual packets, so please.
Okay, don't worry. Well,
It's on page 9 of the big 25-page packet that we got.
Yeah.
All right, why don't I just go through it and
Okay, Rocky.
if board members have the packet in front of them, they could refer to it as well. Then it's not going to take too long. But in any case, what I'm referring to is a statement of activity comparison and budget report through November 20th, 2020. Basically, that represents about 90% of the fiscal year has been completed. And our revenues are about 74% of the budget, and our expenses are about 73% of the budget. Now, on the good, and we're about 90% through the budget year. Now, on the good news front, I think everyone's aware that the PPP loan has been officially forgiven, and so it is now considered as grant revenue, as noted in that budget in the budget report. So about $82,000 of the grant revenue that's displayed there of $88,000 is coming from the SBA loan that has been converted into a grant. So that's very good news. It's no longer considered a liability to the organization, and so that helps our revenue stream. The bad news, if you will, related to the revenue, and I think once again think not everyone is aware of the fact that we will not be getting the fourth quarter payment from the county of $125,000. We have budgeted for $500,000 from the occupancy tax, quarterly payments of $125 each quarter. However, as everyone is aware of the fact that the occupancy tax monies that were received by the county was much less than had been projected last year, before last year at this time. And in any case, because of that, we get 50% of the share. Oh, there you go. 50% of the share of that, and it's well below what we have budgeted. And so we will not be getting the fourth quarter payment of $125,000. Hopefully, and I'm not sure where this stands right now in terms of an outstanding question, that if the occupancy tax falls even further short, if you will, because we got $375,000. So that translates into $750,000. Half of 375 is 750. If the county does not reach the 750 threshold, are they going to be recouping that money from the partnership? Because we get 50% of the occupancy tax. I personally hope that is not the case because we don't have the revenue stream to support that any payback requirement that will be in place. As everyone is aware, in more positive years, every year we give money back to the county, and the unexpended money goes back to the county. So we don't have a reserve fund. We don't have a reserve fund established to allow for us to draw down from a reserve fund during difficult times like we are in this current year. So hopefully we will not have to give back any of that $375,000 that we did receive from the county. We also had budgeted. Well, excuse me, never mind, not about that. So historically, we have received money from the general fund, the county, which we did not receive this year as well. So hopefully things can be worked out where that there won't be a recouping of the money that's already been provided to the partnership associated with that. In terms of the expenses activity, everything is pretty much on the mark related to expenses in terms of the budget information. As I pointed out, we're about 73% of the budget, our expenses are about 73% of the budget. So that's good news. It's on track with the revenue stream. The outlier, if you will, in terms of the line item that's sticking out is advertising. Well, we have budgeted $1,000 for advertising. We spent over $6,000 to date. A good portion of that, however, was through the recent event in Boston Spa, where the announcement of the economic development plan, which is a very successful event. In fact, I still keep hearing on NPR, on local public radio locally about the event in Boston Spa that was hosted by the partnership group. So a lot of positive spin-offs are occurring from that. But as it relates to the budget, our expenses were well over what we have budgeted for. The others are tracking okay, with the exception of the legal, which we talked about last month in terms of the partnership activities associated with that. Right now, our revenue is okay in terms of because we have the grant money, and our cash flow is all right. But I'm going to throw out a yellow flag here because we do have $77,000 in the checking account at this particular time, which will take us through the end of the year in terms of expenses that we have. But we have to be cautious in going into next year because in terms of receiving the money from the county, I know Shelby will be talking about that probably in a few minutes about the 2021 budget situation. But it's important that we receive the county revenue the first sooner rather than later to avoid a a more serious cash flow problem that may occur if we do not get that money sooner rather than later. Because once again, we don't have much money in our reserve account. We don't have anything in our reserve, and our cash flow will take us to the end of the year, but we'll have some challenges going into 2021. So that's basically it right now in terms of our financial statements. Certainly, when you look at the expense, the comparison of expenses from last year to this year, you could see certainly the county, the staff has done a fantastic job in keeping our expenses down significantly. So they've done their due diligence as relates to being in line with the revenue that's coming in, reducing our expenses accordingly to make sure that we don't go in the red, if you will. But there are some challenges ahead. But that being said, through November 20th, things are secure at this particular time.
Discussion, anybody?
Thank you,
Questions?
Rocco. I do have a quick question. You were highlighting some areas where you characterize them as a caution area. Do we anticipate any additional legal expenses through the end of the year? And if so, what might they entail?
No, not normal, not above and beyond the normal course. And I believe you asked this question at the last meeting, and I do feel like just, handling normal course of business and also attending board meetings. And also, I mean, if there's any probably tweak, we can probably talk about it today. And I think that's related to the 2020 funding update and talking a little bit about the 2021 funding request. And Justin can probably clarify some of that, the difference between the contract as well as the budget resolution in room occupancy tax. So that's the only place that I can see even a minor tweak.
And if I could just follow up, I did bring that up at the last meeting, but the response I got was hopefully no additional funding. That's why I asked it again on this call.
Okay. And yeah, again, it's hopefully, I can't tell what is going to happen in December, but always we hope that we won't need them.
Thank you.
We really don't have a lot of wiggle room. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? At this point, then I would like to hear a motion about approving this budget. Is this approval?
The minutes, it's the minutes.
The minutes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's the treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report. I knew I was on the wrong track. Sorry. Treasurer's report.
I'd so move.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Second?
Yes.
Second.
Any?
Ben.
Okay. Anybody who abstains or who's not gonna? Then anybody, all approved, say aye.
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 Got it?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for that. So it looks like next is Shelby's, you're doing the 2021 budget next, Shelby?
Yeah, an old business. I can give a quick update on what I understand and discussions about the 2020 funding as well as the 2020 funding request.
Okay.
Well, I'll jump right into the 2021 funding request. The budget came out a week and a half or so ago. That's the reason why the board meeting was moved from last week to this week, because they have been in budget hearings. But I know that we had a stretch budget, we had a conservative budget, and in there, $450,000 was allocated to the partnership. And I believe 150 for SEDC, same as last year, and 150 for, it says unallocated, but it's actually for the Community Economic Development Fund that we've been working closely with the town. So they're going to put that back in. I know there was a lot of discussion about room occupancy tax projections. Obviously we're going to make, the best, rosiest picture possible projection, as well as the fact that, we understand that there's going to be a COVID vaccine and there's a potential of herd immunity as soon as May, folks are saying. So, 2020 was unlike any other year. The fact that our main hospitality and tourism drivers and what puts heads in beds, Saratoga Racecourse, SPAC, Casino Raceway, our hospitality and tourism sector, which brings in group meetings, has all been drastically impacted, which has had an impact on our room occupancy tax for this year. And also a lot of folks, there was questions in the supervisors meetings and also questions about getting clarification on our 2020 budget. During the budget hearings, we heard that folks were confused about the fact that we've only received $375,000 from this year. I think Justin can actually explain the contract that he put together with the county attorney based on $500,000, which was supposed to be half of the room occupancy tax, and offering us 4 quarterly payments. So, technically based on our contract, we should have gotten our 4th quarter payment on October 15th. And we have not, and the justification for that was that there is a budget resolution out there that says we would be limited to only half of room occupancy tax. Under a normal year, we would have been more than covered. In this year, obviously it has not come out as well as we had anticipated. And, there is potentially an expectation that we go to the county and make a case in December for getting our 4th quarter payment. But Justin, would you like to speak to that a little bit as far as the legal side between the budget resolution as well as the contract?
Yeah, sure. The contract for 2020 does provide for quarterly payments of $125,000, and also provided a mechanism and language that protects the partnership from any overpayments as long as the funds are all used in 2020. I can circle back with the county attorney and speak with anybody at the county you think appropriate, but that's what the contract provides for. I wasn't provided with any county budget or authorizing resolutions until after the contract was struck up and signed. So I wasn't aware of any restrictions to the tax law provisions when we were putting that together with the county attorney. At this point, I would think it a good idea to go talk to the county about honoring the contract itself, so you can make some meaningful planning. As Rocco pointed out, the month of January and February, things start to look a little precarious in terms of forecasting. So I would go ask for it for sure, and then try to put something in place that makes sense for 2021 as well. Hopefully with some budget resources on top of the bed tax intercept that you have by statute.
Does anyone want to, anyone have any questions about that?
Justin, this is Darren. I have a quick question. I mean, from my questions to Steve and Spencer at the last board meeting, I was trying to nail down exactly which quarter these payments related to and which had been made and which hadn't been made. My understanding from what Drew Jarash was saying is that the October 15th payment was the 3rd quarter, at least from the Board of Supervisors, from the county point of view. And the 4th quarter payment is, in terms of the county yearly budget, the 4th quarter payment comes in January. So, but we're talking about the October 15th as the fourth payment. I thought it was the 3rd. It's the 3rd from the county point of view, I think.
No, we had a payment in January. And then a payment, I believe, in April, then June, and October was the fourth scheduled for 2020, which will
Right,
allow.
but the January payment related to 2019, right? From the
Nope.
from the county budget point of view.
No, the prior year had been all paid out for 2018, or pardon me, 2019.
Okay, then, we and the county have different views. I mean, the county believes that October 15th was the third quarter, and we believe it's the fourth quarter. So I'm not sure. I think there's a misunderstanding here.
We
I
have
don't know how that plays out, but
the unfortunate situation is that room occupancy tax collection is not coterminous with our calendar year or our budget year. It always lags behind by at least 3 months or so. The collection period after the first quarter would be, we'd be looking at April for what the first quarter collection for room occupancy tax would be for 2021. So in order for us to actually have any kind of level of predictability, in the past, actually, all of the funding, whether it was room occupancy tax and general fund funding, was funded up front. This was the first year in our 5 years that we had a quarterly payment. So generally, whatever is agreed upon in the budget is allocated over the course of the year. And then it's my understanding, and Justin can chime in on this, is that either we give money back or, we spend it for the most part. I think in this case, we have definitely spent the money that has been allocated to us by Saratoga County. I think, for 2021, all we are basically asking for is that level of predictability moving forward. And it was, the first time there was a budget resolution that basically limited us to exactly half of room occupancy tax that was allocated by law. And, we're doing everything in our power to go after other sources of funding and leverage whatever we can that we get from the county to ensure that, we are tightening our belt, that we are being conservative, while also being able to fulfill our mission and not be undercapitalized.
okay, I understand that. I just think from in the county's understanding, out of the 2020 budget, the county has paid $250,000 to the partnership because they've made 2 payments in April and July or whatever. They didn't.
Sorry to cut you off. Just to clarify, there's been 3 payments made in 2020 out of 4 that are required in the 2020 contract. First one in January when the contract was signed, then in April, then in June. So 375 has been paid within this fiscal year and this calendar year. There was a 4th payment scheduled for October 15th that has not been paid by the county without any official communication as to why, other than some verbal, comments back and forth or little updates, but nothing official. That's kind of where we're sitting right now.
I understand that 4 payments have been made in the year 2020. I just think that from the county's perspective, that 3, I understand from the county's perspective, that only 2 relate to the occupancy recoupment in 2020. So, they've paid 250. So the 50% of the occupancy tax, relates to the 250, not the 375. It seems to me from the counties. I mean, that's what I was gathering from what Drew Jarash said and what Steve Dorsey was saying.
So that first payment in January of 2020, that was from last year's contract?
That's what I think. That's what they told me.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the big picture, we can chase that down offline, and certainly happy to help in any way, shape, or form. The concept of recoupment for 2020, in addition to, blood from a stone response, there'd be no resources to recoup from. The understanding and the county's ability to confirm and audit actual receipts for 2020 for bed tax collections isn't going to be certain until the end of February, if not early March. So to make the judgment that, oh my gosh, there's been, the collections are way undersized, we won't know for certain for quite some time, for 4 months from now at least. The bigger picture, and I think the bigger to pursue and address, is making sure that the partnership has a predictable and plannable budget to carry out its operations in 2021. So those conversations obviously are important ones over the next few weeks.
And adding to that also is we only have $75,000 in the checking account. That's the extent of our financial resources, as I understand it to be. I don't know if there's any money elsewhere that I'm not familiar with, but $75,000 is not going to take us too much further out into 2021. So it's important that we do receive whatever money we're getting from the county early on in the new fiscal year versus having it be delayed until an audit is done of the 2020 financial situation. So cash flow is very important to running the organization. And I guess the second part of my question, Darren, I guess, is if we've only received $250,000 from this year, I guess the good news is that we may be entitled to even more money from the 50% of the bed tax. You're on mute.
That was my point, Rocco.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's the interpretation, it sounds like a good one to me.
Sounds to me like we just need to have a detailed conversation with Drew Jarash and know exactly where we're at, and then go in front of the Economic Development Committee and make our case.
I agree.
This is Steve. I would caution though, when I talk to Drew, his estimate is the county bed tax through at least the first 3 quarters, which includes the all-important third quarter for the summer, is estimated to be down 70%. And given what's going on this quarter and certainly into the first couple quarters of next year, they don't see that changing much. So I wouldn't necessarily assume it's good news, because if the Board of Supervisors decides to cap the payment to the partnership at 50% of the bed tax, and they ultimately determine that bed tax is down 70% from last year, that's another whole problem we're going to be facing. And it's a very significant problem. So I think we got to be looking at, I don't think we can just plan on hoping that the County Board of Supervisors is going to fund us to the level, we've been getting for the last few years, given the fall off in the tax, both in 20 and anticipated for at least the first 2 quarters of 21.
I'd agree, Steve. I think the exact number was 67% down, and that's going to really damage Q1 for sure. Hopefully we start to rebound Q2, and then the summer hopefully is a nice recovery. But I think we have a case to make, because if you're going to dig yourself out of a pandemic economic hole, it requires investment. And if that means tapping into county fund balance to make whole the partnership in order to promote economic development, then that's something that the Board of Supervisors should at least consider.
Actually, also the staff, as been pointed out, is aggressively pursuing grant opportunities as well. And as such, they need additional resources to match the money that may be available, or the staffing that's necessary to supplement what may be available through the grant programs, because usually the grant programs do not pay for 100% of the cost of the services being provided. So I think it's important that in terms of reinforcing the importance of continuing to get financial support from the county, and also the fact that historically, as been pointed out, when we do not spend that money, we're entitled to 50% of the bed tax, but when we don't spend that money in a given year, we give that money back. So this year, because of this past year, because the money is low, I think that hopefully they consider that in their evaluation, and as pointed out, to take some of that money from the reserve fund to supplement any difference that's needed. With also the understanding that the partnership has really reduced their expenses significantly from previous years, in terms of how they're expending money and the services that they're providing directly to the community, to the stakeholders within the county.
Rocco, this is Justin. Just for a quick clarification, the contract for 2020 eliminated that clause where we are required to send funds back. It specifically called those out. As long as we use them, they don't have to be returned, no matter the issue. And I can talk with the county attorney if there's any questions on that.
Well, you said as long as they're not used. So that means, and I must say it goes back to my point in terms of it's always nice to have a reserve fund. Be very conservative, have a reserve fund. So when you get difficult financial times like we're in now, we could tap into that reserve fund rather than giving the money back to the county like we have historically. The reserve fund is established to allow the fund balance to be drawn down from in difficult times.
One of the questions that, when the discussion happens between the county and the partnership, I think should be asked or might be asked is what budget impact the rest of the two payments for 2020 budget would have. And my sense is, and I don't know this for sure, maybe the three other supervisors know better than I do, but my guess is that in the 2020 budget was budgeted $500,000 period. So that, there's the question out there of whether that payment will violate the resolution, because of the unfortunate thing with the occupancy tax. But nevertheless, my belief is that 500,000 is probably in the 2020 budget. So if the decision is made by the county to give the partnership that money anyway, namely the two payments for $250 apiece, that agreement would have no budget impact, quote unquote, on the 2020 budget. So, that's a point that, might be made to the county.
Good point. So do we need to make any motions at this point? Is that just discussion?
It's just informing everyone
Information.
of what's
Okay.
going on in discussion. And like I said, through the budget hearing process, and also the budget has come out, it was important to give an update.
Okay. Any other questions remain out there? Okay. Seems rather grave. Okay. What's next on
The unity.
Unity? If that's me, I can give you a short update. In hopes that we can recover some form of moving forward and do our business of economic development in ways that were laid out in our contract, that is for the local businesses, retention, for helping the communities locally. I had a meeting with John Munter from SEDC to talk about his understanding moving forward. And I think it was fairly amicable, however, not quite ready to do anything collaboratively based on all the events that occurred. We were interested when we had the discussion about having a third party independent do some kind of a survey with the community to look at community stakeholders, not just businesses, but community partners, workforce partners, anybody's interested in economic development in the county of Saratoga to do a short survey on their opinion of what's important, what's priority, what needs to be done, especially in light of how things came out of the pandemic. Well, I think it's especially salient to a lot of the hospitality and restaurant businesses to find out how they're faring and what they would need. John Munter took that suggestion to his board, the SEDC, and they didn't think they had the money. As we're seeing, we don't have money either, but they thought they had a good handle on what people need and want. But I still think that any kind of a survey, you find things out that you may not have known. So I'm going to put that out there. If anybody has any thoughts about it, I still think that it's a something to look forward to in the future at some point in time, to do a some kind of a survey to know what the communities are experiencing at post recovery, or hopefully while they're coming through recovery, and maybe help to serve them in the future. And it could be as simple as looking at Camoin Associates and seeing if they'll help, see if we can find grant money to pay them, see if we can do our own study. But that was just the discussion that turned from, here we are, we're both still in the economic development business in the county. How do we move forward through this? And the survey was one way to look at what the community's perception is and where we can go from here. Not singling out any particular entity or organization, just saying in general what the perception is and what needs to be done in the county. So that was my attempt at a unity meeting in light of what has happened. And that's my report that I can bring to you. If you have any thoughts, you want to talk to me on the sidebar, I'd be happy to talk more. But I think that's going to be tabled in light of the budget. And since we're not going to be, I'm just going to leave it out there. That's what I thought was, it was a good discussion. It seemed like it was open. It seemed like it was honest to most, for both parties to know what happened and where we stand.
I think that's great. I mean, it may be a little step, but it's a step. And to the extent we can focus on a survey, instead of the disputes, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, any step that's positive is great.
I hope so.
Good, more power to you.
Well, thank you. So that was my little, anything else on that? Okay.
Who would be the audience for the survey? I'm sorry, Penny. Who would be the audience for the survey?
I think we would look at an audience that is just general community members, whether it's community organizations, businesses, educational providers, workforce providers. I think the general public. I think that we have lists enough that we could go out there to the businesses especially, but especially the ones that are hurting now. I think that they would like to know what kind of economic development opportunities there are. I'm thinking that there may be, the state doesn't have any money for anything. We've applied for grant money for several things that was through either SUNY or the state and the college. And we've found, we're just tightening belts everywhere. And the municipalities are obviously hurting. So we don't know what this next administration is going to bring, if anything, to the municipalities. We're just hoping that there'll be some relief packages possibly. But I think right now, we're trying to build a new building up in Malta. I know, Darren, you're doing some good things in Malta too. And what we had counted on our hands, the full hand worth of funding evaporated down to 2 fingers instead of 5. So we're out there raising money, just like everybody else.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rocky. Okay.
New business? I can put up the agenda if this is helpful for you.
The new business?
It is, it was a potential board appointment, Stephen Obermeyer, BBL Construction, and then BBL Hospitality. And this came from the partnership. We, in the absence of former chairman Kevin Headley, and after he departed the board in October, we've been talking to folks and reaching out to folks and trying to understand who could actually backfill that and also add value and capacity, not only to the organization, but for the community. Mr. Obermeyer, his resume is attached to your packet, is the Chief Financial Officer at BBL Construction and the President of BBL Hospitality. Has a lot of involvement on the regional level, as well as really understands hospitality and tourism and the retail industry, which has been significantly impacted by pandemic. He's also on the governance, the Board of Governors at SCDC, and I think has a similar mindset as many of the folks here on this board who would one day like to see us mend fences and move forward in a positive way for economic development in Saratoga County and move forward with economic recovery related to COVID. So that appointment was brought to the supervisors. It has been tabled for now. I know that many of the appointments right now are being tabled until the January organizational meeting. So that's out there. Our board does not formally make appointments, or we don't. It's really up to the Board of Supervisors to make appointments. And I think earlier on in the year, having discussions with our governance committee, especially when Charles Waite was chairing that, he really wanted to see a mechanism for the private sector board members of the board to make recommendations to the supervisors for private sector board appointments, and then the supervisors would make supervisors appointments. But that hasn't been formally updated in our bylaws. So, right now, if we have a recommendation, we just have to send it up the flagpole. So that's where we are.
It's the president's report. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, the president's report is in front of you. Hold on one second as I open it. We have a few things to report. We are plugging right away with Next Wave Communities Malta, doing our community stakeholder interviews. Let's see, I think we wrote a little bit about our budget allocation, and we're also reporting that our PPP loan has been forgiven. Thank you so much. And thank you to Steve Bulger, the SBA, for all the work they've done, and also Adirondack Trust. That many businesses would not have had access to it without the support of our community banks. After our last board meeting, we are in compliance with the New York State Authority's budget office. Our budget is up there as recommended. We ran into the same issue last year. We put the budgeted amount, but they asked for that to be uploaded before the formal budget allocation. So we did go with our stretch budget and upload that into their system. Our EPA, I think we talked, our EPA Brownfield Community-Wide Assessment, our grant has been submitted to the EPA. We asked for $300,000. We'll find out in April whether or not we receive that. And that also includes roughly $47,000 in administrative funding and professional staff time. Our Northern Towns project with BN Communications, right now we expect a final report to be ready, and we will be reviewing or giving this report to actually an Adirondack Council made up of all the communities in the entire Adirondacks, along with BN Communications and the Northern Towns. But hopefully when at the conclusion of this plan, we have the ability to create something that can be modeled and replicated in other communities, and also leverage that for future marketing and talent attraction efforts. Next Wave Communities Boston Spa, we are actively in the implementation phase of this and working very closely with the community. We just had a linkage study kickoff meeting this past week. The village has hired Planning for Places, and they do that with CDTC and CDRPC, but it's going really well. They referenced our plan multiple times in the workshop that we did, which had about 60 stakeholders this past week, but it's going well. We have actually been called by multiple folks who are, actually making investments in their properties in the Village of Ballston Spa. We're working on a community branding campaign that was one of the recommendations of the plan. So that plan contained a 22-page checklist of action items to start plugging away on, and we've jumped right into it starting in October. Next Wave Communities Galway, we are reconvening this with interviews and focus groups. We're also working with them on what they would like, which is senior housing out in that community. And like I said, Next Wave Communities Malta, we're heavily engaged in our interview process right now. And along with that, there's the Luther Forest Technology Campus 2.0 and market analysis. The study, luckily we have held off a little bit on that study because we did not have our fourth quarter payment, and we were looking to Saratoga County IDA to potentially be a partner in this study. As well as one of our partners, CEG, went through a merger process with the Capital Region Chamber. So a lot has been up in the air since we did their initial RFP. Plus, since 2.5, 3 weeks ago, Scannell Properties, which is an Indianapolis-based developer, is looking to purchase 245 acres within Luther Forest. So I have gone back to that consultant that we're working with, Jacobs, and basically asked if we could change the scope of the study a little bit, because if you are going to be changing the PDD and actually opening that up for warehouse logistics and distribution, it might change the scope of what we're looking at because the PDD would be different. So that's pretty much where we are on. Like I said, we've been very busy over the past few weeks. Oh, and I keep talking about workforce training to expand childcare, but we do have a general survey and employer survey right now. We're working with the Bright Side Up, which is Capital Region Child Care Council, and the Adirondack Regional Child Care Council, related to a workforce issue, which is the availability of childcare, and it has impacted people's ability to re-enter the workforce, especially related to COVID. It's been extremely disruptive, some of the school schedules. So we've got a survey that will be going out next week. We are not the only community that is actually doing this. This is being done in Montgomery County. There are multiple employers that are looking at potentially investing in a childcare center. You might have heard that Regeneron invested in their own childcare center. And it is actually a priority at the New York State level to try to proliferate childcare so that we can expand and stretch the workforce participation rate. So more to come on that. Luckily, we're doing it in a lot of partnership with other folks. So, we're trying to keep staff time and costs manageable for implementing that. And just on a couple of other small things, I was recently invited to join the Albany International Airport's Master Plan Regional Advisory Committee. I think we're one of about 25 or 30 folks, and that should go on over the course of 2 years. And I was also invited to join Saratoga Hospital, has applied for a Community of Excellence grant, and they are working with various stakeholders related to health, traffic safety, food security, other things like that. But this all kind of encompasses economic development and community development. And so we plan on having a kickoff meeting as soon as next week. So that's about it. My president's report. Anyone have any questions?
That's good, Shelby. No questions? Any other matters before the board? No? And I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Moved. Thank you, Benny. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah,
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
good to see you all.
See you in
Please
December.
stay safe, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.